Welcome to The Bottom Line, where every day we're bringing you a wrap of the business news of the day. And an important topic today, mobile phones made by the Chinese manufacturer Huawei have become increasingly popular here in South Africa and around the world. But many users are wondering what's going to happen since Huawei is being constrained by a ban in the US. The company was blacklisted by the United States government in the middle of May. That prevented American businesses from trading with Huawei in effect. This means Google, Facebook cutting their contracts. The problem is Google is behind the Android operating system that operates Huawei phones. Huawei was granted a temporary license from the government, but that expires on August the 19th. The concern has always been that Huawei phones won't be usable without Android updates, and the American companies, of course, are also worried that they will lose out on Chinese customers. To discuss, we're joined by Huawei's South Africa's Chief Technology Officer, Akhram Mohamed. Akhram, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I've checked with Huawei phone users. Just confirm there has been no impact at all for Huawei phone users in South Africa thus far.
That's correct. There's been no impact thus far, but there will be no impact going forward as well. And I think that's what I'd like to clarify today, is there's been a lot of misinformation that's been in the public domain since this ban went effective.
Yeah.
And where that stems from is the lack of understanding of what effectively has happened with the US trade wars. So I will keep away from the politics of the situation and rather focus on the business aspect. And essentially what we are saying is when it came into effect around the 16th of May this year, what the ban has stated that is going forward, these American companies cannot work with Huawei in terms of sharing technology. But what has already gone through the process, for example, we use Google and Android as an example, the mobile devices that has gone through the approval process are not affected by that. So all phones that have been launched, have been sold in the past in South Africa, are currently for sale today and will be for sale tomorrow, will not be affected. So your Android apps will continue to work, your updates will continue to come through, and so will your security patches.
So just explain that further. So you're saying there will be no impact, even though technically Google cannot work with Huawei. Surely that must affect, say, your updates, your security upgrades, or are they allowed to continue to do that for Huawei phones?
Yes, so they will be allowed to do that based on agreements that have already taken place for products that are already launched and announced. For newer products that we have not brought to market as yet, that they will not be able to support on, and that is where the negotiations are still sitting. So what we are saying is we're still negotiating, and hopefully in the future we will be able to resolve this. But in the current situation, if you have to purchase a Huawei P30 series tomorrow, that will not be affected by that, and you continue to get your updates.
Okay, because that's an existing phone.
That's right. I mean, if
it depends when it's been manufactured, right? Is someone keeping track of that?
So it's actually a product segment. The P30 series, the entire segment will not be affected. So even if it's manufactured later, only new to-come phones. And I think they could not. It's not feasible to take a blanket approach, because how far do you go back? Do you go with current devices a year ago, 2 years? It will essentially disrupt all phones that have been launched across the world in terms of Huawei, and for the last year that's been 200 million devices, so that's not possible and not feasible to sustain.
So some of the fears that you'll have WhatsApp, you'll have Facebook, you'll have YouTube on your phone, and suddenly things start disappearing.
Yeah, so this is the guarantee and the reassurance that Huawei South Africa is giving to our users, is that going forward, all phones currently in the market that you are using or you are going to buy from any retail store in this country, you will not have any issues whether with Google or third-party applications or support. In fact, we have already launched a beta program which will be coming through in July for the new Android Q platform. To be launched on the P30 series to South African consumers. So we are pushing forward with that. It'll be business as usual. And why I say any device you can go into a South African store is because if it's not compatible or there is a chance there will be an issue, we will not bring it into the South African market. We will not launch it. So you can be rest assured as a consumer, if you see it, it is backed and supported by Huawei, and you are guaranteed to be safe.
The bigger picture, though, this must constrain innovation, because you can't really bring out new series using Android. Google may come up with amazing apps in future that won't be on Huawei phones. Surely that's a huge concern. You're going to go backwards rather than forwards.
It is a concern, but rather just for Huawei as a concern. I think it's a concern for the industry as a whole, because collaboration drives innovation. And that's what we've been saying all the time. You know, many of the Huawei fans are saying, well, guys, go on your own. Launch your own operating system. You don't need to do this. And the reason we are so adamant about pushing forward is, like you just mentioned, in terms of innovation and having those features. For example, EMUI is Huawei's software overlay on top of Android. And we've been working on that for many years, and we've had it. EMUI launched gesture controls long before Google could on Android. If you look at certain AI functionality, Huawei introduced it to Huawei users via EMUI before Android could. This encouraged innovation, and then everybody else got it. Similarly, Google released certain functionality that we didn't support, and then we went and innovated, and we've improved. And at the end of the day, the consumer benefits.
So it's better for everyone to be working together.
To be working together, and that's exactly what we're saying. Across the board, it's better if everybody works together. It drives tech forward, it drives innovation forward, and our consumers benefit.
I know you can't speak on behalf of the global company, but this is important for South Africans as well. The concern was that Huawei could be used by the Chinese to spy on people. And it sounds outlandish to some, but we know that these little spying things can be snuck in. WhatsApp had to do an upgrade recently. Your phones become listening devices. Is that a valid concern?
I think, for looking at Huawei, is it a valid concern that Huawei can be used for spying? No. Is it a concern in
by
general?
By the Chinese government?
Is it? Not at all. You know, all of these statements that have been made, or accusations against Huawei, is yet to be proven. Not once has it ever been. And this is what we are saying to everybody, to the world, to the governments. Come over to us. We invite you to come to our R&D centers. We invite you to come to our factories. We invite you to come in. We will sign contracts with any government in the world to say we'll have a no spy clause. But, you know, without just getting into that, I think where it's been driven from is that Huawei is the #1 telecommunications company globally. Okay, we are leading 5G innovation. We are the second largest handset manufacturer in the world. And all of this in a space of 30 years. With these accusations, with everything that's been said, we are in the spotlight. We are basically naked in the public. And people are looking at us. If you take the industry as a whole, and they are scrutinized as much as Huawei, I'm sure you would find similar or maybe worse. You know, so what we are saying is that the responsibility for security is everyone's responsibility. It's the manufacturer's responsibility, it's the networks and the carriers, it's governments. All of us need to put processes in place. Could it happen at some point or the other that something slips through the cracks and there could be an error? Of course. Everybody could go through that. But do we deliberately have security issues? Absolutely not. It would not make sense. It will cripple our business. In 30 years, we have grown to be the number.
Found out.
It does not make sense at all. And over and above that, we operate in 170 countries across the globe. Okay, we have, in terms of 5G infrastructure, more than 40 contracts globally to be able to roll that out from governments, from these countries. If security was a valid and indeed a valid issue or concern, that would not be happening.
Okay, so we've heard from your big boss saying hopefully the US will reconsider. This is going to the courts. Just tell us what Huawei is doing on a global level to try and fight this.
I think more than Huawei doing anything, you know, we are just being very transparent and open and saying, guys, let's sit around the table, let's discuss it. If there's issues, if there's concerns, what are they? And bring through your facts so we can address this. You know, that's mainly. But I think more than just Huawei, like I said, the industry, our partners. Many people incorrectly branded this as the Google ban, as an example, purely because Google is such a large player when it comes to Android. It's not the Google ban, it was the US trade ban. You know, so in fact, we have a very good relationship with Google, and it's always been like that, and Intel and everybody else.
Google wants this like a hole in the head, I'm sure, because they want the Chinese market.
Correct.
As well.
You know, and apart from that, you know, it's just about, Huawei is not just about mobile phones. We make wearable technology, we make laptops and PCs, you know, connected IoT devices and connected home products. And across that product segment, we have multiple interactions with Google and the likes of Intel and many other American companies. And I think it's in the best interest of not just the Americans, the Europeans, but for the entire world that we work together to be able to improve coverage of access to technology.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Hopefully that puts Huawei phone users' minds at ease. That was Huawei South Africa's Chief Technology Officer, Akhram Mohamed.